Yes, sir, you're audible. Yeah, Bhaiya. Okay, so hello, Mr. Priyanshu. This is Lakshita, a member at CNA IITG, and I'll be hosting today's session. And we're really glad to have you with us. So, just a second. Yeah. Uh,
Hey, hi, Lakshita, hi everyone.
yeah, am I audible?
You're audible, Lakshita.
Yeah. Okay, so we can start with
Should
the session.
yeah, we can go ahead,
Yeah.
right? Hello, hi everyone. Uh, how are you doing, guys? Doing? Let's try to make this a bit interactive as well, so that I don't feel like I'm just talking to a screen. Um, and yeah, I think let's go ahead. So I'll just briefly introduce myself, and then what are we planning for this session, and then we can at the end do a Q&A as well. So I'm Priyanshu. I I graduated from IIT Guwahati in 2023 from mechanical engineering. Uh, was part of the COVID batches where uh, we could not spend some time off college due to COVID. So we were at home, but we did enjoy our last years, like third, fourth year, because COVID it had resumed. Had a really great journey at IIT Guwahati. Was super fun. Was part of this club as well as several other things, including being convener of Technique and then uh, being part of other clubs like Finance Club, etc. So always was inclined towards like the non-tech side of things. Um, then I went on to join BCG. I worked at BCG for 1.5 years, almost more than 1.5 years, doing cases across various industries. I'll actually give you some of those examples to help you understand the industry better, and then maybe we can use that as a sort of a learning thing as well, right? uh, Also briefly interned at Titan Capital before joining BCG after my graduation, so have a little bit of VC experience. And more recently I have joined Swiggy in their corporate development team. I am working as a strategy and investments team member. What I do is typically drive internal strategic projects for the team, which may, just to give an example, which may be something like if you want to have a new category on Instamart. Instamart is Swiggy's quick commerce app, right? Uh, how do we, go about strategizing the entire category? What sort of resources do we put in it? What do we envision it, the target for it? How do we make it a big business, etc.? And then long-term strategy projects which involve where would we bring like next $2-3 billion in enterprise value from what Swiggy is currently at, if you want to build a new business. So it may require some organic things, but also inorganic things, which includes investments, mergers and acquisitions, etc. So yeah, that is briefly about my role, and my journey so far. And yeah, let's begin with the session now. So I'll what we'll do is we'll quickly go through how does a case interview look like, how should we prepare for it. Uh, there are some there are certain industries for which case interviews comes, right? So we might cover some of those as well. So yeah, let's go ahead. So yeah, this is the brief outline which we discussed. So let me start by what does a case interview look like. So typically a interview with say a consulting company like BCG, McKinsey, etc. would last around say 30-35 minutes. Of course, this is subjective and may vary. Your first 5 minutes would be so the 30-minute interview is actually divided into two parts, which is 25 minutes of case interview and 5 minutes of other chit chat. Now the other chit chat would be introduction of yourself, maybe why consulting, why the company that you're giving interview for. Also might be some questions on your resume, uh, and the rest 25 minutes would typically be a case interview. Now, your case interview is typically broadly divided into like three main buckets. One is, you know, you trying to understand the problem. Now, what happens is the interviewer would tell you that this is what the question or this is what the problem is, and we'll go through some examples as well. But they'll give you a problem, and what you'll have to do is firstly understand the problem correctly, right? That needs that you repeat the problem. You ask, "Is this the objective?" You try to get the objective from the question from the problem, right? And then uh, ask questions about the problem to make a get a base context for the problem, and then the next 15 minutes after you understood the problem, you know what is happening, etc., you try to break down the broad problem, and that is of course done in a messy way, as of course every one of you might be aware. We break down the problem in a sort of tree manner where we divide it into buckets and sub buckets, and then we try to individually tackle those buckets. And then you get to the right sort of core problem, which might be the actual thing that is causing the problem at hand, which is reduced profitability, increased costs, decreased revenue, etc. Once you identify the core problem, the next step is to give solution and then summarize the problem. Of course, there may be some interchanges in between with the interviewer, which might look different, but this is how broadly a case interview looks like. I just walk you through an example, and actually while walking through the example, I would actually like if you guys can maybe speak up about what you guys are thinking about the problem. Um So the problem is your client is a cab aggregator. They are a big player. They are, but their growth in profits has stagnated. Find out the reasons and make recommendations. So ideally, what my first step would be, I would actually sort of repeat the problem in a different words, which makes me understand the problem, and then I confirm on the interview what they are trying to ask. I would say, yeah, so we are hired by a cab aggregator, and then they're seeing degrowth in profit or less growth in profit. Actually, it has stagnated, and we want to find out the reasons. I would actually go ahead and clarify some terms if I'm not, fully sure of them. What does growth in profit mean? Is it that the profit is degrowing, or does this mean that if the profit was earlier growing by 10% every year, it's maybe growing by 5% every year? I would go ahead and ask these sort of questions first. Firstly, just understand the core, the sentence that they're spoken. The next would be then asking some preliminary questions. Actually, if someone can go ahead and ask some questions, that would be very good. That would make the session interactive, and then we can have a discussion as well on this. Anyone? You can type in the chat boxes as well. Everything works. I think our audience is not interacting. They are shy, I think. But yeah, let's see. What would you ask? What we would typically ask is, uh, is this sort of industry-wide problem, or is it a problem that we are seeing internally only? Because it's an industry-wide problem, they typically are solved in a different manner because that represents that some macroeconomic factors or some other factor may be impacting, right? Something like a COVID, etc. Then what you can also ask uh, is the problem is faced in a particular geography, or is it faced in the entire country? Uh, Again, geography can change a lot of answers in this, right? Um, your questions can be, what is the extent of this problem? Uh, is it like 10% to 7% or 10% to 2%? Uh, it can also be, uh, it can actually be several things. You actually have to, when you practice, you actually get to, refine it to a 3, 4 questions, which, you deem fit at the right time in the interview. Uh, Yeah, I think Asim, I think of course your what you mentioned is correct. I would rather put that thing in the second step of the problem. We are actually in the first step, which is asking the right questions to actually understand the problem. What other questions can be is uh, what are the revenue sources for the company? I don't think it is that much relevant here, but say if the revenue decline was for a restaurant, the revenue sources could have been your restaurant's own sale, your restaurant sales through delivery partners, your restaurant sales through takeouts, your restaurants. Maybe your restaurant is a single location which has parking, so there may be parking sales as well, etc. So there might be several revenue streams that you might have to look at. So yeah, this is how you first try to understand the preliminary problem by understanding preliminary questions, and then as a next step, what you do is you break down the problem. Now, as I think as you said, how do you break down the problem? The problem is if it's a profitability case, how is it broken down is you typically say your profits would be revenue minus your costs. Now, then you would ask, where does this problem lie? And actually, you would not rather ask like that. You would give a brief outline of a problem where you would say, I would like to look at profits. Profits are typically revenue minus costs. My revenues would be how much I earn per ride into number of rides that people take. And my costs would be across my costs can be fixed costs and variable costs. And maybe if you want to go into details, you can go. But this is how we would say, this is how I'm approaching the problem. Where do you think the problem lies? The interviewer would guide you to the right thing where they would say that it is in revenue. Since you're already broken down into amount per ride into number of rides, they say that the number of rides have decreased. And there are several ways to break down the problem, right? It's not typically the same. Sometimes what happens is this part is typically the same for this problem, but for say a different problem where you are selling cars, it can be number of cars sold into average cost of a car, but also keeping in mind the number of models that the car has. Because it may be the case that some models of the car may have this issue, right? So you always need to think of broadly where the problem can be and not be restrictive when you are, pointing out the uh, uh, problem statement or the tree that you're making. So typically, then you would break down it further. If the number of rides are decreased, the number of customers can be decreased or rides per customer. Now, even number of customers can be broken down into your existing customer and your new customers, right? But again, this problem did not have that aspect, and this problem was rides per customer have decreased. Now you go ahead and see why rides per customer have decreased. There are several ways to break down a problem, and what you'll do is, and we'll cover this in the later part, you will learn. Uh, Sorry, Prince, you're saying something. I think we can cover the questions just after the slide and then at the end as well. Yeah, so you would some examples can be you break down into customer journey where the customer journey is pre-cab ride, during cab ride, and post-cab ride. And then the interviewer can guide you to the right way where they say that it's during cab ride, and then you mention the factors in during cab ride, which is safety, hygiene, driving, navigation, attitude, etc. And then say it's the problem is in navigation. For this problem, at least, the problem was that they were using their own navigation software along with Google Maps, and their own navigation software was not working that well, which was leading to bad reviews in the customer where they were not getting the right navigation on time, etc. And was it reducing customers' experience, and hence people taking rides had reduced. Uh, uh, Now this is broadly how you tackle a problem, and then you summarize the problem and you actually give solutions that while you're developing you can maybe take a subscription or you can use Google Maps to actually find the right navigation and maybe develop this on your own, and maybe try it out in pilot phase where you try out in some cities at once where the load is not that high and customer stickiness is high, so that you do not lose out on customers even if it does not perform well. And then once it starts performing well, you actually launch it out to the entire public. Uh, and maybe you actually divide your solution into short term and long term. Your short term solution can be use Google Maps, and your long term can be develop it on your own, but do it in a pilot phase, etc. And of course, if you can think of some other creative solutions, those are of course well appreciated as well. Uh, yeah. I think there was a notification in chat. Let me see that and then we can move on to the next slide. I don't know. There seems to be some error. Acha. What could we do? Actually, I'll get to this, Prince. When I move on to some of the next slides, I'll actually tell you about my experience as well, and tell you how different or how similar it is. Right. What are the resources to study and prepare? Now, your resources would be number one step is I think you should download ace books, and I think CNA would of course have a repository of their own as well of good business schools like I am Ahmedabad, I am Bangalore, I am Calcutta. Uh, then maybe ISP, maybe some D colleges like FMS, SRCC, and of course your own CNA's consulting guide. Right. The second would be enrolling yourself into some uh, websites which do case preps. Uh, there was a cases of a copy earlier which was paid, I think, but there's a free website. I forgot the name. If I remember, I'll just share it across. But there are some websites which help you prepare for free as well. Typically, the audience is international, uh, uh, which is a pro and con both. The pro is that you get to experience different kind of cases. Typically, international cases have a lot of numbers, while Indian cases do not have a lot of numbers. Maybe because typically Indians are better at math. While the con maybe that since they have a sort of a different structure, it might not be a good resemblance of what happens here. But always good to practice more and more cases. And third is just be updated by regular news, read articles, etc. Because it always helps because you get to understand about the industry. And typically what happens is your cases are spread out across different industries, right? Retail, manufacturing, uh, agriculture, maybe something like a cab aggregator, which is consumer internet, etc. When you read about different industries, different reports, different news items, you typically get a common understanding of the industry, the business sense of the industry, the revenue sources for the industry, the cost headers for the industry, etc., which helps you, uh, while you can understand these by practicing cases, but it helps in the overall scheme of things. How to practice, I think, what you typically should do, and I think many of you might be doing it as well, is grab a friend who is as interested as you in, pursuing consulting or doing consulting interviews and make them your regular partner. When I say regular partner, you should typically do 80, 90%, 80% at least of your cases with them, and the rest 20% with can be with other folks. The reason for that being that when you do it with your designated partner, you guys know what your strengths are, what your weaknesses are. Both of you would know this, and they would actually help you and highlight to you the things that you might be doing wrong for multiple times over and over. Uh, so just to have a good, I would say, bookkeeping of what you're doing, how you are performing in these interviews. Having a partner can really help. How I used to do it was I used to have a fixed partner and then several other people who were doing, of course, practice. Uh, and then the fixed partner would be there where with whom I'll do maybe 2-3 cases a day. I'll take 2-3 cases and I'll give also 2-3 cases. Because one very important aspect for case interviews is you need to understand how to get hints from your interviewer. A lot of time, uh, it is not expected that you would know everything, right? And interviews typically give out a lot of hints. But taking hints and being receptive to hints can only come when you practice a lot. Hence, you need to take interviews, take 2-3 interviews a day, and give 2-3 interviews a day, which would ultimately give you exposure of around 5 to 6 cases a day, which is a very good number, right? And of course, it can depend upon your seriousness of pursuing this industry, or maybe your time limitation factors, other things as well. But uh, I feel that this is a doable number, and I used to typically do it in that range. Uh, Practice for at least 30 days, I would say. 30 days is a good amount of time. I think 1 month gives you a good time to prepare for it. When you do say for a month, you have typically say if you do 3 cases a day, you given 90 cases. And I think and this is not a number to reach, but reaching a 900 cases is like gives you like full control over your interview readiness, I would say. So yeah, and then when you are doing cases, just test yourself with different types of industries, different types of problem statements there as well, where cases can be like A, profitability, B, market entry, C, growth, and D, unconventional. I would say do 70, 80% or 60, 70% profitability cases, 20% market entry, and then 10% growth in unconventional cases. Uh, and guesstimates as well, maybe practice guesstimates either in your case time, or guesstimates can be done individually as well. I think you guys have a different session for guesstimates altogether. But yeah, this is how you broadly do different types of cases, and practice it with different kind of people as well, where you have your partner for the 80% of time, for the rest 20% of time. It can be your other friends who are preparing, it can be your seniors, it can be your super seniors, it can be some industry folk whom you're contacted with, etc., etc. A very, very important point: record after every case. And I have the repository of all the cases that I practiced till now. After every case, write the feedback in the sheet itself, and maintain a separate sort of book where you write all the feedbacks that you receive from the case, from your interviewer, and what you feel you should improve. And try to not make those mistakes again. So, but when you record yourself, what helps is that you are registering it in your memory that you have made this mistake and you should not make this mistake again. Uh, so yeah, and I just give out some of the kinds of mistakes that typically people make in regular. It can be that you haven't asked the right preliminary question. When you miss a preliminary question, right preliminary question, your case interview can grow from a very good position to a very bad position. And it's not that you cannot recover, but it typically happens. Where, as an example, if my restaurant business was, say, seeing a decline in profitability, I would have maybe directly went on to solve the problem. But if I would have asked properly, maybe the problem would have been that earlier I used to do like 50% of my business was deliveries and 50% was actually people eating in dining. The dining part, the delivery part is doing all good now also, but the dining part is not doing good. Maybe we would have just focused on the dining part, right? Hence, A, asking preliminary questions is very important. B, knowing the right revenue sources, because if you forget some revenue sources, then even if you try to solve the problem, you might not be, able to solve it. C, it can be that, uh, you are using a very repetitive framework. So there are always frameworks to solve the problem, but a framework should not be rigid. A framework should not be fixed. A framework should be something that you are able to develop on your own. And this you'll get with practice, where you would require a set specific framework. Yes, framework would be profit is revenue minus cost. But as you go and proceed, you'll typically start to realize that in this problem, I should divide it in this way. In this problem, I should divide it in this way. Uh, where example, if you're doing profitability case, sometimes you divide it in, if it's people have started to buy less, you divide it into, or actually the number of orders have reduced, you divide it into supply issues or demand issues. Sometimes you divide it into external issues, internal issues. Sometimes you just directly you move on to go and say that I'll just look at the customer uh, user flow or customer journey, and just not getting restricted to a specific framework always helps. Uh, yes, these are typically some of the problems that people make on regularly, which you need to think of. I will move on to the next slide. which is and this is a very generic slide where I'm saying that uh, during the interview be calm, don't be nervous, of course. Uh, Whenever you get stuck, just take a deep breath and think, taking a step back. What and when you actually take a step back, you realize that you actually missed something, and that was actually the key to the problem, right? Um, Rest before the case interviews, etc. Uh, so, and actually, I don't have any more slides after this, but of course I have several things to speak, and then we'll also have a Q&A. Uh, so, what I want to say some other tips. I could not put these in slides, but yeah, some other tips would be that uh, whenever you get stuck in the interview, there are some things that help you, get out of the thing that you're stuck at. And typically, what you get stuck is at when you're not able to identify or get to the right problem at hand. What helps is you take a step back, as I mentioned before. There are some things which have always helped me. A is that when I'm not able to break down the problem uh, much further, I sometimes use internal versus external factors to break down, where uh, I'll see what externally could have affected and what internally could have affected. The second thing that I use is I imagine myself in the situation, uh, and I go into the customer journey. Once you go into the customer journey, it becomes very evident what a customer would be doing and what would your interactions be with the company at hand, and hence what things that you would have uh, missed while doing it. So, so using these things like uh, customer journey, internal, external, uh, can really help you. Uh, I think this is one of the things that I wanted to tell. Let me just recollect if there's something else, uh, and then I'll move into the second part. No, I think that is it. Uh, I actually move on to the second part, which actually answers one of the questions that you guys have also asked. I briefly tell you about my journey at BCG, what kinds of challenges I did. I actually use that as a lever to tell you about some industries that I worked in. Because I'm very glad that you need to practice a different types of industries as well. Now, typically, you need to learn about these industries, not actually learn about these industries, but you need to be comfortable, using those industries or finding solutions for those industries while solving a problem. What I mean when I say this is that uh, for different industries, the revenue sources would be very different. For these industries, the cost headers would be very different. Variable cost would be different. Would be a different. The entire value chain would be very different, etc., etc. Right? Uh, and hence, uh, hence, what you need to one do is in these all these casebooks, they are typically industry report section. You typically, if you just go through them once, I'm not saying learn or do anything else, just go through them once. It'll just give you a brief overview of the industries that are there. The industries would be financial sector, banking, insurance. Your industries would be consumer internet, where something like Ola, Uber, uh, Swiggy, Zomato, etc. Your industries would be manufacturing sector, where it can be a host of things because manufacturing is very broad. It can be something like a retail sector, restaurant industry as well, airline industry. Airline industry is one of the favorites. Manufacturing is also one of the favorites of some of these consulting companies because typically what happens is these consulting companies charge you a lot, charge the client a lot, right? So the companies that can afford are the companies which are very large in scale, and that those companies are typically banking, manufacturing, etc. in India at least, and abroad as well. So yeah, read about these industries from the industry reports that you get in the casebooks. Read about them in the newspapers, news reports, etc. Uh, I'll actually walk you down through a couple of industries on my own uh, with the limited knowledge that I have because I'm not a subject matter expert in any of the industries, but I've worked in consulting in some of the industries and I have a little bit of knowledge. And that would actually tell you something about what the work that I did, and yeah, maybe that would maybe get your interest raised as well. So yeah, so in PGT, I've worked in three cases. I'll just walk you down through all of them. So the first one was I worked with a cement client where we're doing profitability. We were actually doing sales acceleration for them, which is a revenue increase. Of course, everything comes then down to the final profits also there, but ultimately, what our metrics were to increase the sales. Uh, and how we were structured was there was several regional office for the client. Uh, there were four folks in the team, four folks sitting in four regional offices for the client. There were only four regional offices and taking care of the sales in that region. And then handling some central pieces. The central pieces would be, for example, what are the stakeholders that are there, right, to increase sales? You have your sales force. So what can you do with your sales force? Can you increase, the people who visit dealers, retailers? Can you increase sales out from them? So the stakeholders are there. The other stakeholders are people who actually buy it, which are typically homeowners need cement, but the people who buy or make the buying decision are typically masons and contractors. So what do you do for the masons and contractors? Right? How do you make it interesting for them? What incentives do you give to them? What gifts do you give to them so that they would buy cement from you? And typically, in cement industry, it is very common that masons and contractors are enrolled with cement companies and they get incentives on the amount of sales that they bring into the company. And there are several reward schemes involving like people going on international trips, etc., where if you're bringing in a good amount of sales. The stakeholders would be your retailers and dealers. What incentive schemes, what prices can you give to your dealers and retailers, right? Uh, the other thing would be uh, your availability. When you're doing sales, availability is very important. So can the product reach the right place at the right time? Because if you're bringing in sales orders, if you're not able to fulfill it, uh, then it's a sale loss, right? So availability is another factor that we used to cater where, right from manufacturing till the product reaches the required warehouse or actually the dealer or the retailer that you're selling into. That is the other thing that we used to work on. This is broadly about one of the problems, one of the cases that I worked on. I'll actually not spend a lot of time here. I'll move on to the next two, which are a lot more interesting and where I would actually like to have a discussion with you guys as well. The next is I worked with the consumer goods client, luggage client in India. The overall problem statement was we wanted to reduce costs actually, we wanted to increase EBITDA for the client. There's an EBITDA improvement project, which is profitability improvement only. Uh, by doing two things, majorly doing cost optimization, and then also some pricing related changes. So, of course, profitability is revenue and costs, right? So, in the revenue side, you are just doing pricing optimization where your product should be priced right uh, to actually give you the right revenue, right? Uh, how do I explain this? So, if you have a particular product with XYZ function, and a competitor also has the same product with XYZ function and features, uh, are you priced lower to the competitor, higher to the competitor, same as the competitor? And of course, your brand positioning matters, but in a similar brand with the similar features, if you're priced lower to your competitor, you are losing on a chunk of your revenue because if the competitor can sell, maybe you should also try to sell it at a higher price, which gives you the same revenue because consumers are willing to buy, actually give you this price for the same uh, same product or same features, right? The second part in which I particularly worked on was costs. How do we reduce costs for the company? Uh, would someone like to go ahead and tell me what is the value chain for this company? Because typically, while doing cost cases, if you've done any cost cases, you look at the entire value chain and you see where you can reduce the costs. Is someone up for it? Very quiet audience we have here. Okay. Yes, so typically, how we go about it is your value chain would start from sourcing of your raw materials. Uh, Once you source it, you transport them to your manufacturing facility. You manufacture the products, and manufacturing, of course, has different components, but not to get into too much details. You manufacture the products. Uh, you then supply it to your warehouses. Of course, this also involves several steps where there are your mother warehouses where your product goes first, and then your child warehouses where it might go later from your mother warehouses. And that includes the transporting as well because that is also a cost. And then from your child warehouses, you sell it to your distributors, retailers, who actually are your customers. Because of course it is majorly a B2C business and some part of it is B2C or B2C where the company sells it directly, but most of it is sold to say modern trade clients like Reliance, DMart, etc. General trade clients like general trade. I can't list out general trade because general trade is everywhere, which is multi-brand outlets, which you see, and then some of it is your own stores, the stores that the company operates themselves. As example, jewelry brands operate like Jiva operates their own store, but they also sell it online, etc. Right? So yeah, your own stores and your franchisees. And then this is the next part of value chain, and then the last part can be the customer support part of it and the marketing part of it. The customer support can very well be just maintaining relationships with your customer, but then also can involve some warranty related expenses as well because if there's any warranty issues which we do have to replace if it's warranty, right, which is an added cost. Uh, just to tell you about what we did with a client, we were working in the direct cost, which is procurement costs, where if you are sourcing, say, plastic for the company, what is the actually direct costs also involve solving it in multiple ways. One can very well be a commercial lever. Your commercial lever is sorry, I'm in a cab, so I'm moving a lot. But yeah, your so we were talking about direct costs, right? So direct costs can be solved by say commercial levers. Commercial levers can be negotiating with your vendors, bringing in new vendors who get you a better price, etc. It can very well be technical or design levers. Now, technical and design levers would be say your product uses polypropylene plastic, but sorry, polycarbonate plastic. While you think that and polycarbonate is expensive than polypropylene, PP and PC. If PC is expensive than PP, can you use PP for it? Will customers still buy the product if you use PP for it? And PP is less stronger than polycarbonate. Hence, for higher end suitcases, we might use PC, while for lower end, we might use PP. It can also be: Are you buying at the? Are you giving the right uh, share of business to your vendors? If you're because a company does not have a single vendor, right? It can have three, four, five vendors. If you give the right share of business to one of your vendors, they might want reduce costs even more for you if you give them better business. It can also be these things are very cyclical in nature, very different in nature. Are you buying it at the right time? When plastic prices are low, are you maybe stocking it up more overall, right? So just this was a broad example of what we guys used to do. We worked in direct costs, we worked in indirect costs, which involves marketing, which involves your IT software, which involves your travel costs, etc. Then we also worked in supply chain costs, where we were reducing logistics costs for the client, warehousing costs for the client. Logistics cost would be, say, I'm using trucks to transport, right? Can I use larger size trucks? Can I use railways instead of roadways to transport? Uh, can I have my own vehicles instead of having like transporters? Uh, if it is beneficial for me in the longer run. Can I club several orders together? Uh, can I do a milk run? Milk run is basically when you deliver to 4 or 5 of your customers together instead of delivering to a single customer. But then it increases the TAT, which is turnaround time, which is delivery time to your customer. So, what is the serviceability versus uh, actual cost that you're incurring? What is the trade-off there? So, these were some of the things that we used to solve for. And this typically, and when I say these things, I'm telling you these things because this was a luggage client, but this is very well relevant for a lot of uh, other companies, other consumer goods companies, other FMCG companies as well. So you can use it as a reference while you are solving the cases for these clients. And lastly, I will just touch upon one of the other cases that I did in like 2 3 minutes, and we can have the last 10 15 minutes for uh, Q&A. I also did a banking case where uh, uh, we were we were going actually deposits for the client. Uh, so it's not cost, it's not revenue. Of course, it would translate into P&L, but uh, the ultimate goal was to increase deposits. Why deposits? Because if you have you can give out more loans. If you give out more, invest more, you want more money. Uh, Now, for banking client, there are different income sources that you need to be aware of. One of your major income sources, the interest that you earn from your loans. But your actual profitability comes from the gap between your loans and the interest that you give on deposits. If you are giving out a loan at 9%, you're giving customer deposits at 5 6%. The difference between those two, 9 minus 5 6%, is 3 4%, is the income that you will make in the long run, right? So one of them is this revenue source. The second revenue source is a fee income. Your fee income can be when you sell a personal loan, for the matter, sell any other loan. You typically charge a fee, a loan processing fee. Uh, when you open a bank account, when there can be fee as well if you are not maintaining it. There can be ATM fees. There can very well be fees for other products like credit cards, debit cards, for other ancillary services like asset management services, brokerage, demat, etc. Uh, People also, some of the banks also have a like a investment bank division, so that can be other source of revenue. So yeah, this is how the industry is, like the banking industry. Uh, and typically, banking industry has like uh, even a retail bank in India would have like two divisions, which is one would be the retail division, sorry, the division which looks after your regular customers like us, and then there would be a division which would be a corporate division, which would look after corporate clients because those clients typically would have a large deposit base, and of course large business base also because they that can be used for loaning out business loans, from loans, etc. So yeah, that is how the industry is positioned. And what I was doing particularly was these banks typically have a relationship management. They do a lot of relationship management where the larger clients get physical relationship managers and sitting in bank branches. Also, these are also of several levels. And then your typically smaller clients, but people who keep like 1 lakh rupees per month at least in their bank account would get a virtual relationship manager, which is a guy sitting in call center handling like 2,000 clients. And typically, since their low size of client is very small, something like I have a virtual relationship manager with my HDFC account, right? Uh, so typically, these clients give you a high value because those are growing clients because they typically keep low amount now, but they will grow. Maybe they are not earning as much now. They'll earn more in the future. If you make good relationship with them, they might extend and buy more products from you, more services from you, or for that matter, keep more deposits with you as well. Right. So we were targeting the virtual relationship manager channel, which is a very evolving, very growing channel for the banking industry at this moment. Uh, Axis and HDFC are very mature in it right now. ICICI as well, while other banks are, trying to scale up as well. I would say. So yeah, that is broadly about my experience in BCG, my experience in some of the consumer goods and banking industries, my experience in issue solving, etc. I have given my contact here and LinkedIn here as well. You guys can reach out to me anytime to, talk to me. I would like to thank Consulting and Analytics Club for this, Ska, Abhishek, others as well. Especially Ansh helped me in making the slides. I was pretty swamped with work yesterday, and I was traveling today, and I could not set time. But uh, the guys have been really really helpful and really accommodating. So thank you so much for this, and yeah, I'm happy to take questions now. Do you have any questions?
Yeah, so sir, the session was streamed on
Don't
YouTube,
call me
so I
sir. Yeah.
collected some questions. Yeah, okay, bhaiya.
Uh,
Yeah, so I've collected some questions from there.
yeah.
So yeah, one of the question goes, since every case can have like multiple valid approaches, how do we evaluate whether the solution we've come up with is structured and logical enough, especially when case books usually show one or two possible solutions?
Okay. So I think number one, actually, and I forgot to point this out that never read cases. You may read one, two cases, but don't read more, maybe more than one, two cases, right? Because when you read a case, you become sort of bound to the thought process or the methodology that they are using, and that restricts your methodology or the thought process that you might have had that would have been good. Never read cases. I agree that there are several ways to break down a problem. uh, I think what I think there are two things here which you need to think of. One is practice a lot of cases. When you practice a lot of cases, you you typically understand sort of the problems that are coming. See, there are limited number of problems. uh, I can say there are infinite problems, but actually there are limited number of problems that actually come where you if you practice a lot of cases, you you understand the right way to solve a problem more often than not by practice. The second is don't be restricted by any framework. Develop your own frameworks, develop your own thought process. I think one of the things that you have heard for consulting or for that matter, any good business industry is first principles thinking. What is first principles thinking? It is even if you don't know anything about the industry, anything about the problem, you can break down the problem in a messy way, in a structured way, into sub parts, subsections, and then understand the problem, understand the industry at whole. I think developing that first principle thinking is very important, and that can only come by practice, reading a lot, and practice. And if you develop this first principle thinking, I don't think you'll ever feel confused, and you'll feel that I don't understand what is the right way, because you'll actually start to develop your own right way by doing that. Uh, and when I'm solving if you like, and if you give me a question or a problem right now, I would actually, what I'll do is maybe take a step back and think from first principles and see the customer journey in my head, maybe see what can be the revenue sources, maybe see what can be the growth trends or what can be the macroeconomic factors for those industries. Just think broadly once and then try to structure it by myself. And it does not come easy where when you're doing it in the start, it might seem difficult, but over time, you learn it. So yeah, that is how you do it.
Yeah, so the next question goes like, would you recommend starting with casebooks right away for beginners, or should we first build basics like business frameworks and mental math?
Yeah, what I would say is take half a day or a day to just broadly go through like a first part of most of the casebooks, which tell you how does a case interview look like, what are the broad frameworks, etc. Take it at max a day. Um, Read one or two cases in that day, and then move to solving cases. Practices is the only way in which you do get good in your interviews and actually learn first principles thinking as well. Even if you don't know the industry, weak in some other aspects. If you practice cases right from the start, you'll develop it in 10, 15, 20 days. So yeah, do that. Start right away.
Okay. And how important are internships in getting a good consulting placement?
Sorry, I missed your question, Lakshita. Can you repeat, please?
Yeah, so the question is, how important are internships in getting a good consulting placement?
Okay. See, I haven't covered the resume part of it, but typically, very, if I say consulting companies look at three, four things. They look at your academics. They like see good grades, 8.5 plus. And sorry if I'm being a little blunt here. Of course, lower than that also can get shortlisted, but it increases your chances if you have a good CGPA. They try to look at academic achievements as well. The second is they look at your past experience. So internships do help. If you have internships, it is very well. Uh, and maybe some very good projects, but more focus on internships. Uh, and the internships do not have to be consulting internships or product management internships or anything. They can be machine learning, SD, any internship. What they'd like to see is you have done some work at a good place. Of course, they are very happy to take folks who have done internships. I mean, very good companies like GS, GPMC, Microsoft, etc., because they want to see spike in your CV. The next is they like to see positions or responsibilities where you have yeah, and then the last one is extracurriculars and achievements, where if you participate in case competitions, have you done extracurriculars in academically or something related to studies, but maybe socially, culturally, technically, sports, etc. So yeah, internships do help. I would not deny, uh, and it's preferable that you show internship in your CV. But of course, if you have very good CV, otherwise you can get shortlisted as well.
Okay, Bhaiya. So this is it for today. Thank you, Bhaiya, for taking time to guide us today. And the session was really insightful. So we really appreciate your time and efforts. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thank you, Lakshita. Thank you, Consulting Analytics. Thank you, everyone, the organizing team. Sorry, I was in a cab. There might have been some disturbances, but yeah, I had fun with you all. Though the interaction was very low, but liked it very much. Thank you all. How to prep cases alone? Yeah, find a friend. Cases alone is difficult. But if you have to prepare, then use these free sites or paid sites online. But still, I would recommend uh, that find have a friend. Also, you can make a lot of people on Topmate, etc. Put out uh, that they can take a mock interview. So maybe give those. But yeah, try to get a partner. I think we have one more question. There's a question on dead end. Yeah, if there's a dead end, you actually are allowed to take some time. Tell that, I'll take 30 seconds, I'll take a step back and I'll get back again. Use of first principle thinking, use some other framework, use some other mental model to the next question. It is okay if you are wrong at times. Even interviewers understand that, but it's very important to acknowledge that you have missed XYZ and you would like to cover those things. Uh, uh, so yeah, I think that is very important. Okay, I think we are done then. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you, Priya.